Good evening, and welcome to not another edition of Splattercast. No, we are doing another trailer breakdown. Yes, and today we're discussing Ty West's next installment in his pseudo X trilogy, Pearl, which just released today. Graced our phone screens, our laptop screens, whichever screen you ended up watching this on. We got to check it out, and I just figured we'd sit down and talk about it a little bit because X, although something we said in the past we didn't get to cover, we almost did. We kind of missed the boat on that one, I would say, by a few weeks. Like we had really just started getting things rolling and really didn't get on it. Was something that we both really enjoyed. I would say. I think that it's something we'll definitely have to cover in the future. But Luke, what are your thoughts on X?
I enjoyed X. It's a very well-made film, and that's what I love to see. Where kind of horror takes a backseat in terms of quality. That's kind of the stigma that's out there. But especially with Ty West films, there's a lot of filmmakers out there now diving into horror that are legitimate filmmakers and really put together um, these really nice cinematic films. And I think X really falls into that. And I mean, like, just looking at this trailer for Pearl, this easily falls into that category as well.
Yeah, no, I would say that X was definitely a polarizing surprise for me. I kind of said it in my short that I did, reacting to the trailer initially, is just kind of a film that, you know, I watched it the first time and I was just kind of like, okay, that was interesting. But it really sat with me for a long time. It still sits with me today. It is still something that on subsequent rewatches I've gone to appreciate a lot more. And I know I said in the past that the Dead Meat podcast, when they covered this, they really cracked that whole thing open for me to just give me a whole new light and perspective on the movie itself. I feel like they saw a lot more into it as to where I was kind of just I guess buying into the hype a lot
Yeah.
with it, where it's just more I was expecting it to be a little bit more straightforward. But no, it definitely takes you on a pretty wild ride. And I gotta say, I love the aspect of it as far as the 70s vibes to it, very Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I know it's been compared 100 times from 100 different people, but it's clear as day that was a huge inspiration for them on that first film, which is interesting because coming into this, I'm not getting that vibe at all. I'm getting a very technicolor. I think if I said it in one of my takes for the short, was very Wizard of Oz
Yeah.
style of filmmaking here. So when we go through the trailer, um, I'll definitely point out those aspects. But what interests me is that when we watched it digitally. We didn't see it in theaters. So I think we both had a lot going on and we never got a chance to make it. But when we watched it, there wasn't this post credit scene for this movie that there was in theaters. Because I remember when I first finished the movie, I always finally was able to be like, okay, I can look at some reviews, I can see what people are thinking, see what people are saying about it. And that's when I started hearing about this post credit scene. And that's when it got uncovered for me that this was a trilogy. So it's one of those things where it's like, this is such a weird and like unique thing that you don't see very often anymore, where they greenlit it and they were able to shoot it back to back. So if you look at it, I believe we're getting this film in September, I think is what it said. And X just came out in March. So like, when's the last time something like that even happened? I want to say it was Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. And I was in the same boat with you where we watched it digitally and there was so much hype around this film. I'm expecting an absolute masterpiece here. And uh, watching the credits roll for X, I was kind of left asking more questions, thinking that there wasn't going to be another film. And I was like, I mean, it was a well made film, but why didn't they touch on this or why didn't they touch on that? And then when you messaged me and said, oh no, this is actually part of a trilogy and they're going to be doing like a prequel and I think a sequel, right?
They will be
Um,
doing a sequel.
so I was like, after that, I I adore this movie, and because like you're saying, we don't get this kind of like they're all filmed together, and they're going to be put out in very date
Short
wise very
succession.
very close. But I respect this even more because this he essentially released the middle film here. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
like you were supposed to be asking yourself all those questions. And it's like, he took a huge risk here where it's like, some people, if you don't answer all their questions or tell a complete story in that first film, they tend to check out and they're like, okay, we're not going to go back here. And I guess he does run that risk. I don't know if there was anyone that actually sat down and watched this and decided they were going to check out and not even care about a sequel or a prequel here. But I will say it was a ballsy move and I really enjoyed it. And it made me enjoy X that much more. And it makes me anticipate Pearl that much more as well.
Oh yeah, and I mean, like for me, I have a couple of friends who went and saw X in theaters, and they were I would say, mildly disappointed. They still had a fun time, but they were just like, okay, I don't get all of this. I doubt they even know that this is a part of a trilogy. I haven't even told them the trailers come out yet. So, because they're not in this landscape with us, they're not really in the community as far as just like keeping up on stuff like this. But I would say overall, through the horror community, this film was pretty adored. X,
Yes.
I mean. So I'm
And
curious.
that's a blessing and a curse because
Yeah.
I mean, we weren't the first ones to the theater to go see it. So by the time by the time I think you got it digitally, and by the time we decided to jump in and give this a first watch, we had that preconceived notion that this is 90 something percent on Rotten Tomatoes. This is spoke so highly of. So we had very high expectations for this film, and I think that kind of going through that first viewing there was kind of evident because you're expecting so much out of this film that it's almost impossible for it to live up to. Because I have watched X a second time, and I would say I enjoyed it way more that second viewing because I knew what to expect and I knew what was coming after X. So watching it that second time made a whole world of difference.
No, I agree. I think that the second viewing on that film definitely helps. And I think that because, you kind of go into it and you're expecting, and I think we can leave the spoilers out really for that one just so we can save it for a deeper dive. But, I think you go into that movie expecting one thing and it kind of twists it and it goes a little bit of a different direction. But like I said,
all works.
Yeah, but I think like when it all finally clicked for me, it was one of those things where I'm like, that's really interesting, actually. Like, okay, so I just, I hope that there are people who, maybe aren't as forgiving with kind of stuff like that would be willing to go back and give it a second chance. Because I think, going back and seeing it, you'll notice a lot more and you'll pick up a lot more because that initial shock is over with. But I say let's hop into our first viewing here. We're going to do like what we did with our Halloween Ends trailer breakdown. We're going to watch the trailer here as it is, and then we'll go back through and kind of slowly pick out, little things we notice here and there, and then we'll wrap this puppy up. But without any further ado, here's the Pearl trailer. A24. Now they are plastering themselves all over this movie, and I completely understand why, because X had this like nice reception. But like I think this was pointed out to me that this was actually technically A24's first franchise.
Oh yeah,
none of their stuff really has
you never
any.
really think about that stuff.
They don't have any sequels, as far as I know. I think maybe like one, the Souvenir, is it, or whatever? I don't know.
Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway. I love this callback. You know me and my creature features. So yes. when we saw the crocodile show up in X, I was or alligator, I was very interested to see how they were going to use it. I knew somebody was going to die from it, but it is nice to see that she's kind of been coaxing the skater, or keeping it around for quite some time. So
I love the music choice throughout this entire trailer. It really sets the tone of almost this juxtaposition of what is happening a lot. And I mean, the coloring in here is absolutely beautiful.
It's that Technicolor, man. Like I think like that's what I'm saying, where this is like that Wizard of Oz style stuff here, where it's like, you can really see that they've highlighted these colors. And I like that it seems like they're still sticking with that porn angle from X, so we're not completely dropping that. Because I mean, really, at the end of the day, that is at the heart of Pearl's character, really. That's why we need to do a breakdown of this real soon, because like I have a lot of thoughts on her and her motivations, especially in X. That guy fucking explodes. Did you
Yeah.
catch that? Oh, we're
Yep.
gonna have to really go back and look at that. But I really also appreciate, I think, the variation in tone that we're
Yeah.
getting with these two films. Like as I said before, the first film is very much like a 70s slasher, as where this one is trying to emulate that kind of 1920s, 1930s style of filmmaking.
Yeah.
And
This really feels like, as soon as it opens, it really feels like, a cinematic adventure in a way. I don't know, where
Mhm.
it's like, these bright colors popping, you don't really know what you're in for. It's got that bits of horror strewn throughout the trailer, but it really feels, you can feel almost a happiness of this, which is very odd. It's a very different tone than X, and I absolutely love it because he's giving us a variety here. It's like a, one of those little variety bags of potato chips where it's like you get to pick one right out of there, and I love that. Um, it's not going to be just one straight thing, and this makes me look forward to that sequel as well to
Mhm.
X. So it's
To
like, because
see
I
where
want to
that's
see what
gonna
he's
end
going to
up.
choose for that one.
Yeah, and I mean, like, that's exactly how I feel about all this too, is like I think that, having different tones, different styles of filmmaking, different color palettes, even presentation, is excellent. And when I was saying, like, with that porn angle of just seeing when she's like, I think she's like, "Is this legal?" And it's like he's like, "Oh, it will be." It's just kind of like I think that you're gonna see that go throughout the film, because in X, it's very much like, of that time where porn is about to blow up on
Yeah,
home video, because home video is about to be a huge thing.
it's that culture
And
turn.
yes, so it's one of those things where it's like kind of seeing the start of that as opposed to right before it blew up is going to be really interesting.
Yeah,
And really seeing this buttoned up, Americana kind of lifestyle of just like, you want to be a proper woman and a proper man, you want to hide all that stuff, keep it in the bedroom, kind of thing. I'm very curious to see how they explore that and what twisted shit they kind of get into.
yeah, and I'm very intrigued to uncover a lot about Pearl here because, in nowadays everything's a franchise, everything's a sequel, prequel, whatever, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Where it's like sometimes the scary thing about Michael Myers is that you don't know why he kills, that he just does. But like when watching that those viewings of X and you look at Pearl, you're like, there's a lot going on there, and you really do need to uncover that and kind of see what makes Pearl Pearl. So I'm very intrigued. I think this kind of prequel is definitely warranted. So I'm intrigued to see what this entire film is going to be about.
No, I agree. So let's take a look now. We're going to go through the trailer. No audio this time, just a little slower, just so that way we can kind of notice if we have anything that stands out to us. Again, I appreciate the presentation now. And going in the start of X, we open coming out of this barn. And I
Yeah.
think it's very cool that they kind of do that once more here with the trailer, giving you the presentation of the farm.
And like honestly, right here, this really sets the tone for what this trailer is because it's so bright, so happy, very misleading as to what
Hmm.
the tone will be.
Mia Goth plays two roles in the first film, so it's awesome to see her get to come back and play this character. Like they're really exploring her, and it's like it's interesting because it's like with slashers, you don't really get something like this. And I think like now that we're in kind of like the modern era, especially with a company like A24, who's like, willing to front the money for something like this, it's interesting to kind of go in and dissect her mind and see how it works. I'm very curious to see after watching this movie how I'm going to feel about Pearl as a character in X now that we kind of know her backstory. And I think, like you
Yeah.
said, it's a ballsy play with how they decided to do this, where the middle film is where we start, and now we are getting the technically the first film second. And I don't know what's going on here with her and those eggs, but I'm 98% sure those are alligator eggs. So I'm wondering if she steals that baby alligator and that's how she gets it to befriend her. I'm
Yeah.
wondering, or if this is just it just lives by the farm. I'd imagine it lives by the farm, but
And I'm
yeah.
curious, was there a budget number for this? Just because like, I didn't even look at X, but like I love that they're doing these period pieces, but it's basically just on a farm, so you can really contain the story.
No, I didn't get into any of that, but I do know a little bit of the backstory with this is that so X was being shot during COVID.
Okay.
So they had to go to New Zealand because New Zealand was one of the first countries to open up.
Oh,
And
that
so,
makes sense.
yeah, all of this is shot in New Zealand. Now, what happened was when they finished the film, they basically Ty West had Mia Goth stay down there for another, like, I think like 2 or 3 weeks, and they shot the trailer for this. And I think they shot a majority of this film. And then he went back and repitched it to A24 as his trilogy, and that's when they greenlit it, and then they went back and shot more.
I love that red barn back
I
there.
know.
And
Lots of red in this trailer.
yes, and that usage is it doesn't go overlooked. It pops so much, even to when we get into that guy exploding. I mean, you see it right on the car window there. It's just dripping blood. I love it.
Yeah, and this presentation right here, I even love that they have the little distribution logo towards the bottom there too.
Yes.
It is just playing up with that tone and everything. It's just making that setting work so well. Um, I'm very curious to see how this movie is going to turn out. I
Yeah.
really hope that this is awesome too, because we could have a really great modern horror trilogy that people could talk about for a long time with a lot of different avenues and a lot of different ways to go. I think that I think Ty West can pull it off. I think he's shown with his previous works and this one just how much passion he has for it. But the fact that he not only made X and then came back and said I have a trilogy and want to do these two movies, and A24 had the cojones to say go for it. I think that he's going to take this and run with it and just give us his best shot.
And we did the Halloween Ends trailer, and that one was what a minute 15, and we had talked about that's probably what the length of these trailers should be. Sometimes they run for a little bit too long and they give too much away, but this one's what 2 minutes and I think 7 seconds or something like
Yep.
that, and which is a decent amount longer than Halloween Ends for a trailer.
Mhm.
So, but I think this one was edited in such a way where you don't know really what the story's about, and it
No,
keeps it
and that's great.
intriguing. So it's like it's not necessarily the length of the trailer; it's kind of the things that you pick to put in that trailer and how you present them. And I think Ty West on this trailer right here, I mean, absolutely perfect. Because it's like we went and saw Nope, and I mentioned seeing that trailer 3 different times before the Black Phone. It kind of gotten a little monotonous, and yes, that film was definitely unique in the sense they didn't give away everything in the trailer, but that trailer became not fun to watch at all. Where it's like this one, I feel like is so vibrant. The tone is light, even though of what's happening on screens. In some instances, it keeps it still fun.
I agree, and I think the other piece to this puzzle here is just simply that he doesn't have to necessarily tell us what's going on in the story, because even X, to a degree, you only know that they're shooting a porno, but
Yep.
all the horror stuff is kept very vague. And it's very similar in this trailer where it's like all you know is that she's a farm girl who wants to be a star, and that's about it. We have context from the first film, but that's it. We don't really know how these events are going to play out, what each thing means. But yeah, I think that they're doing a great job. And I mean, A24 normally they can cut a trailer. They
Yep.
definitely are good at that because they don't want to give away everything. They want to keep you interested. And I mean, they are one of those brand names that, like, I'd say the brand name when it comes to indie horror right now, where it's like, you see that come up and it's just like, okay, this is an A24 film. Like, that's how people see it and are presented. That's why they can throw out their logo and people be like, oh, okay, I'll
Yeah.
give this a shot.
It has a meaning in 2022 right now, where it's like I know for me, if I see A24 on something, it immediately catches my attention. Where it's like, oh, let me pay attention, see what they bring a certain gravitas a lot of the times to a film. So it's like that piques my interest, even just seeing that A24 logo. So it's like definitely putting that at the front of a trailer, I think gives a connotation up for the audience to either be they're going to be in for it or they're not on board with it.
I agree. But yeah, guys, I think that about wraps us up here for Pearl. You got any final thoughts on that, Luke, or you
I'm
just
definitely intrigued. I mean, I was intrigued with X, but again, that had so much high expectation. It was going to be hard to live up to, but after those repeat viewings, I definitely enjoy it quite a bit. So like this one already has that reputation. So it's like I'm very intrigued to see what we're going to get here. The backstory to Pearl. It looks beautiful. I can't wait to see more. It kind of just watching this for some reason reminds me of Shape of Water, just the way it's presented. I
Mhm.
don't know, like that the quality of the film and the shot composition reminds me of that a lot. So I'm very intrigued just to see what Ty West has in store for us.
Absolutely, I 100% agree. I'm excited for this. I think that if they could have the next film, I don't know if that one's even shot yet, or what's going on with it. We don't have many details on that. Only, like I said, all we know is that this is a trilogy. It would be awesome to see this one come out in March, or the next one come out in March,
Yeah.
so that way we have these three films in quick succession with each other. Because I was just surprised that this was even coming out in September, but
It would be funny if, we do a top 10 list of best horror films of the year and both Pearl and X end up being on that list. Not many directors kind of have that credit.
it could happen, and I mean they're setting themselves up for it. So I'm very interested to see where this goes. But yeah, guys, that about wraps us up for our trailer breakdown of X. Let us know what you guys think of Pearl here, or I'm sorry, our trailer breakdown for Pearl, not X. But let us know what you guys think of the movie here. I think it looks pretty great. If you do want to follow us or catch up with us and see all the current events and little chit chatter that we do online, follow us at Splattercast Pod on Twitter. That's the best place to get a hold of us, as well as dropping a comment down below. We do got some good content coming up for you guys. As always, look forward to the Sunday Scaries this week and a new podcast dropping on Monday. So
Fun
keep your
times.
eyes out for that. Yep. And you can also find our audio only versions of our podcast on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Music, and Amazon Music, as always. But yeah, I guess that about wraps it up here. So until next time, stay scared.